Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. Chad Himes here with my friend Bob Stewart. Bob, how are you today?
Chad, I'm fantastic. I actually, if we weren't here with our guest, I'd probably be out golfing, buddy. It is beautiful here in the Pacific Northwest.
Bob, don't tell people that. We don't want them moving to the Pacific Northwest. Remember, we tell them it rains every day for a reason.
I mean, good luck.
I didn't know you golfed.
If they can find a house to buy here, Chad, like I'd be shocked.
There you go. I didn't know you golfed, Bob. Are you any good?
No, not at all.
Got it. All right. Golfing to me has a windmill or a clown with a nose you're putting into. So I don't know much about golf myself. I enjoy watching it on TV. Bob, you said you were fantastic, correct? That's what you said you were?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, well, for me, that's not enough.
Okay.
I want you to live even better than fantastic, which is why we went and got today's guest, because one of the things our guest is going to talk about today are some of the ways that you can live your best life, Bob. So we're going to get right to it. We're going to bring her right onto the call. I want to introduce our audience to Nicole Mayer. Nicole, thank you for joining Win, Make, Give today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Nicole, are you a golfer?
I golf a little, only because my 11-year-old got into it. So, driving range and drive the golf cart, and I get into it just a bit.
I wish I would have gotten into golf at 11. Like you should really like encourage that.
I totally am. I feel like it's a sport he can play his whole life, and just it has so much value to it.
It does. It's one of those things where I don't think I look, maybe with Tiger Woods, I grew up before Tiger Woods, right? Maybe it's cool now. It wasn't cool when we were kids, right? Golf wasn't cool, but it is one of those things where you wake up at 30 years old, and if you have those skills, you're like, wow, I can actually put these to use. Like, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a fun, cool sport. So
networking sport, if there ever was one. And Bob, do you even remember when you were 30 years old? Come on, don't give us you woke up but you were 30. That was a while ago already.
You're already on my case.
I am. I'm starting early with you, Bob Stewart. All right, Nicole. Now that we know so much of, we don't know anything about you yet, although we know that you know how to drive the golf cart. Nicole, on Win, Make, Give, I don't like to introduce our guests. I like to have our guests introduce themselves, so they truly share with the audience who they are, what it is that they want to have them known for. So introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Well, thanks again for having me. My name's Nicole Mayer. I am been in the financial services industry for the last 15 years. It's what I started in right out of college. Got into the business, and that's when the market crashed. And I got in with this very idealistic view that I was going to do all these great things for people and do planning, and realize that the industry is totally broken, and it's a lot about hacking product, and it's all about the advisor and not necessarily the client, which just goes against everything that how I've been raised and just my personality. So I really thought I was out of the business, and kind of gone through a lot in a short period of time, and had to get some clarity on my own life. Went through a divorce, got married, had a child, had a tumor on my liver, went through a divorce, had half my organ taken out, and had $100,000 plus in student loan debt. And at that point, I was like, I love what I do for people when I can sit with them and help them plan. And I realized what I was doing for people was more than their money. It was really helping them live their best life. And everybody's best life looks so different. And one thing I realized is most of the people I was meeting with were going through some form of transition, maybe in their 50s, I would say late 40s, mid 50s. It was a job transition. Either they were being downsized or they were just changing jobs. And they're like, God, I've been in this hamster wheel forever, and this isn't a great life. Like, I might have a lot of things. I might have a house, I might have nice cars. We've taken great vacations, but I'm not living my best life. And to me, it was a wake-up call to say, oh my God, I don't want to be 50 with more than half my life gone, and saying, oh my God, I haven't been living my best life. And going through all the triumphs that I did myself, I really wanted to develop something to help people start living their best life as early as possible.
Wow. Okay. So we're going to go back to go forward, right?
Okay.
Folks, don't turn this episode off early, because you're going to miss how to live your best life. But let's go back, because you threw out there divorce. I heard tumor, right? I heard another divorce. I heard a kid was brought into there. We know 11 years old now. We know that. Golfing pro on the way here. We heard, student debt. Talk to us about some of the challenges you had some of the lessons you've learned along the way for that. And let's build up to where we even are today. And then we'll go forward on how to live that best life from there.
Yeah. So, I've always been a hustler. I've always worked hard. My dad lost his job when I was my freshman in college, and I didn't want my family to worry about my college. So I went out and got private student loans. No idea what I was signing, no idea what I was doing, but they're like, well, what about your tuition? I'm like, it's taken care of. I don't want you to worry about it. I just want you to worry about, I do have 2 siblings with special needs. So I just want you to worry about going through the tech bubble burst back in the early 2000s and getting through that job transition for my dad. And I didn't want him to worry about me. I graduated college. Thankfully, I only had one divorce. I was only married once. But I got married. Shortly after I got married, I found out I had a tumor on my liver. And so here I graduated. I had all this debt, had no idea that the student loan payment when I graduated was going to be more than some people's mortgages. It was, almost $2,000 a month at the time. I wasn't even bringing that home after taxes. I started out in the financial services industry, and I realized really fast, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to hustle 3 jobs to make this work. And then I get slapped in the face with oh my God, you're 24 years old and you have this major health issue, tumor on your liver, and you have to make some hardcore decisions on things that you're not even ready to think about. And so it was a really, really challenging time in my life. Can't even begin to tell you. I was doing what I'm doing now. I was in the financial services industry, helping people. And, you start to listen to other people's stories. And I realized real fast, okay, listen, this might be the cards that I've been dealt, but I have the power to make it better. And I've always been that person, you fall down, you get back up and start running. So I did start running. And I loved what I was doing for people. Through all that, I had a son that wasn't planned. I was married, but it was not in my life plan. And I started to realize that everything I had planned out for my life, the plan was going out the window, not even. And it wasn't what I pictured growing up. I pictured the white picket fence life. And I was so down and out that my life wasn't the white picket fence life. That's when I quickly realized, I think it was right post-divorce, post having half my liver removed, that I realized that, the life sometimes we envision is not really the life that we're going to live, and it's not really your best life. And I started to realize that I think it was really when I was laying in intensive care right after I had half my liver taken out, saying, what are the things that are most important to me? And how can I incorporate those into my life today? And that is what's going to make me living my best life, not how much I have in my bank account, not what kind of car I'm driving, what kind of house I'm driving, house I have. But who are the people that are most important to me? What am I doing? How am I doing it? And, we hear all this stuff all the time. Oh, do what you love and the money will come. A lot of times I call BS on that because people
bullshit,
you can just flat out say it.
All right. Well, I call bullshit on that because let's just face it. Do what you love. No, are you ready to hustle? Are you ready to do the hard work to get there? And I was definitely committed, and I knew I was going against the grain of everything in our industry, but I'm I am committed to make what I think financial planning should be, to make it living your best life and teaching people way early on. During all this, I was meeting people who were going through some of these issues not until their 50s and 60s. So they are then just questioning their lives then. That's when I started to get gratitude. I felt so blessed that literally by 29, I had experienced what people sometimes take a lifetime to experience. I had it all, and I could really, empathize with people, and I could really help people look at things in a way different way. Money's great. I'd rather be crying inside a Mercedes than on my bike. But let's face it, it's not everything, because I also realized as I started to crush my goals, student debt was paid off. Credit card debt from being married was paid off. All this stuff. I was hitting goals. I wasn't necessarily happy, but when I started to really reframe and say, what is going to make my life happy? I've been through, and just watching clients go through some major life things. I'm like, you know what? Living my best life is not going to look like anybody else's, but mine. And it's going to be about what I'm doing and how I want to do it. I love to travel and see the world. I appreciate things so much more. There's so many things I love to do. And it's also teaching my son like experience over things. And that's kind of how we've lived the last 11 years. He's been on had some incredible adventures. But it was just realizing that like, I don't want to be in the hamster wheel. If I'm in that hamster wheel, like I want to love being in it. And I don't want to ever look back on my life with any regrets, like some of my clients that I see and going like, man, I missed my kid's baseball game.
Nicole, I want to interject. Yeah. I just want to ask a question. You're not the first person that we've had on the podcast that we've talked to who like out of like life just kind of crushing them, they were like, I got to do something different. Right. I mean, that's a lot of times at our low point, we're like, this isn't working. But I would imagine, or maybe you'll tell me I'm wrong, but like the clients you meet now, am I required to kind of be at this place where I'm like, it stinks to like make a change? Or do you see people that are just kind of like, I don't love this. I'm not getting crushed by it, but like, I want to make a change. Like, do I have to be at rock bottom, I guess?
No, I think I was at rock bottom and it made me change and come up with something really unique to be able to teach people. But I'd say most people are just sitting there going like, it's not exciting me, like I'm not waking up every day super excited to do what I do. Like, I don't know. The fire is gone within me. And so, no, you don't have to be at rock bottom. I think at any point you start to look back and reflect and be like, it's like this, you said you're in the Pacific Northwest. It's like I'm in Chicago. If I'm headed out to drive out to the Pacific Northwest, I might have a road map or Google Maps that's going to take me there. But to be educated enough to know that I could take a right turn or left turn and still get there, but I just want to take a little bit of a different route because I want to see the scenery. Like, that's how I look at it. Like, getting an understanding of like where you want to go, why you want to go there, and then being educated enough to take a little detour along the way. Because if it's not working out or you want to see something different, so you don't have to be at rock bottom. I think it's more or that such impactful place, something major happened to you. But I think it's to people, it's like that fire's gone in me. Like,
do you get people though that come to you and that you work with that? Like, I feel like that's a catalyst, right? Rock bottom is this catalyst to make a change. And a lot of times when we're not, we're comfortable, like we don't love what we do, but there's some comfort in having my bills paid. And like, I'm less likely to have that catalyst to make the change. Like, what are some of the other catalysts then besides being at rock bottom that people come? Is it just the mundane of life? They're just like, I'm just bored with this. Like, why do people show up in your world and say, Nicole, help me do something
and sometimes
different?
It's like, people don't even realize it's like little things like they think it's about the money. So when I get people that sit in a chair across from me, they're coming to me because they think it's about the money. Their investment returns, it's their planning, something's off, it's about the money. But when I start talking to them, it's never about the money. It's always about something else. It's about, I'll talk about a recent client. He has grandchildren and like he just started reflecting on his life and I was like, I missed a lot of stuff in my kid's life. Like, I loved what I did. I did an amazing job, but I just missed so much. And like kind of looking back and like, I'm in my early 60s. I could do this the next 10 years and I don't mind it because I do enjoy it. But there's something about being able to experience that with my grandkids. And I'm ready to do something. But he came in and it was about the money. And then it was like me digging a little deeper and being like, all right, well, the money is not an issue. You have plenty and you're doing great. So what is it? Like, what is the change? And, you dig a little deeper and you figure out the biggest thing I love to do with people is I say, listen, you got 14 days left to live. What are you doing? Who are you doing it with? And where are you going? And it's amazing what people tell you. And then it's like, then they sit back and they're like, oh shit, like I'm not doing any of this stuff. Like if that's really what's important to me, I'm not incorporating in my everyday life. So am I really living my like good life? Yeah, I'm comfortable. But like that spark all of a sudden is ignited in them and they're like, yeah, I'm ready to to change a little or incorporate those things, because that is what's important. If it was my last day.
Yeah, if I only had 14 days to live, what would I be doing and who do I be doing it with? One of those days, I would be taking Bob to eat every flavor ice cream other than vanilla. That's one thing I would do with one of my days, Bob.
And I would accept, Chad. I would accept, my friend.
All right, we would spend that time together. All right, so let's get right to it. There's other things we can talk about. There's values, right? There's control. There's all these things that I know you love talking about. But I want to make sure for all of our audience members listening that they walk away today ready to live their best life.
Absolutely.
So you've got a book called Navigating Life's Transitions. So everyone could run to Amazon and Google it up or Amazon it up, right? Navigating Life's Transitions by Nicole Mayer. And you've got an online class you teach called Live Your Best Life. They can go to liveyourbestlifenow.com. Right?
Find yourbestlifenow.com.
Yep. Findyourbestlifenow.com. All right. So they can go check that out. Findyourbestlifenow.com. Talk to us about, like, you know, what are the simple steps? What are the 5 quick things you should know? Or what are the 3 things to do tomorrow to live your best? You've got something. We know every.
Yeah, listen, I have 2 things you can do right now that'll really start to define what your best life looks to you. One is do that 14-day question. You have 14 days left to live. What are you doing? Who are you doing it with? And where are you going if you're going anywhere? And the second one, which is an interesting one, but probably one of the best things you can do, write your own eulogy. And it's super interesting to do. And guess what? It's how you want to be remembered. And if you're not doing those things today, then you're not living your best life, because again, that's the legacy you're leaving. So whatever it is you want people to say about you or how you want to be remembered, just doing those 2 things can bring so much clarity to what you're doing in your life today. And listen, the book on Navigating Life's Transitions is going to talk about a bunch of transitions that you may be going through, whether it's divorce, whether it's job loss. Like those are more, whether it's helping your aging parents or death of a loved one. We work with a ton of professional athletes, even the transitions that they go through. It gives a little story on each of those and, like, again, how people navigate the transitions. But if you're not in transition and you're just like thinking, gosh, I don't know, I'm fine. I guess my life could be a little bit better, or, do I have any regrets? I don't know. Do those 2 exercises. It'll open up your eyes. And listen, if you are living the way you want to be remembered, or you're already incorporating the people, like in your 14 days left of what you're doing, then great. Congratulations. You are living your best life. And guess what? That best life may not look like what you see on social media or what you see your friends. That's okay. It's yours. It's unique. I think we live in a world where it's so full of comparisons these days that you're always looking at one person's snapshot on Instagram of what their life looks like. And you're like, oh shit, mine doesn't look like that. But you could still be living your best life. So those 2 exercises really will change your world. And if you start living the way you want to be remembered and knowing what's clarity on your values, what's important to you, it'll change your world.
All right. So gang, you mentioned social there, Nicole. So I got to make the plug, right? Folks, join us, facebook.com/group/win-make-give. That's our Facebook group, because we want to know something you would do in that 14 days that you have left. Right? Go figure it out. Come jump into the group, find the posting about this episode, and tell us, what would you do? Where would you do it? Who would you be doing it with? Let's hear these things that are out there.
I'm doing this. Like, I'm going to do this exercise tonight. I've never done this before. I've never
Love it.
I've
part 1 of it or part 2 of it, Bob? Have you done the eulogy part? You've just never done the 14 days?
I've never done either one of those things. I think that the eulogy one would be really hard. Not hard as much as it would be like eye-opening, I think. Like there'd be stuff I'd want to write on there that I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable writing on there, because I'm like, I want to be this person, but I'm not that person yet, right? I want people to remember me like this, but I'm not quite that. I can
Nicole,
see
help
how
him,
both of those are.
right? So yeah, Bob's not saying anything you haven't heard. Bob's not saying anything that 98% of our audience that hasn't done this exercise before is screaming, and some of us have done this exercise before. But Bob's saying, I want to say this, but boy, I'm not that. What would you then say helping somebody get from today to becoming that person?
So it's so funny because Bob, you mentioned earlier, like, well, what if you're not like, down in the dumps or at this critical crossroad in your life where it's like spurring a change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think the eulogy one is so important to do that exercise, because people don't start thinking about some of those things. Like you just said, like, I'm not that person yet until something major happens in their life, until there's a major health issue or someone close to them or whatever, someone's sick close to them. So like I say, write that shit down, write it down. And like, it's hard, especially when you're like, okay, I'm not doing that. And that's not the person I am. Yeah, but that means you're not living life the way you should right now. And I think I find people either get totally emotional about it or just it feels very uncomfortable. And I think those are all natural feelings. But I'm telling you, if your life is, I'll say decent right now, good, like no complaints, this is the time to do it. Because when I have to sit with people that I'm not telling them to do the exercise, they're already thinking it in their head because they have something major that happened in their life, it's a whole different ballgame. And that window to make changes to like be living your best life is that much harder. So I say, challenge yourself, write it down, even the uncomfortable stuff. It's amazing. I did the exercise. I had a coach have me do that exercise 12 years ago. And it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. But there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about it, because when I get upset or when stuff does go awry or stuff is even great, I just think back to like, am I living like the person I want to be? And it just helps put things in perspective for me.
I feel like, Chad, we write our goals down and what kind of, how much business we're going to do this year. And, but that kind of overarching, like, who do I want to be? I don't think many of us spend a lot of time, Nicole, thinking about that. Tell me something. Let's just say that, I did the 14-day exercise and I'm like, man, if I only had 14 days to live, like I'm going to be, 3 of those days are going to be on a beach vacationing somewhere with my wife. And a couple of those days are going to be with like my best group of friends out seeing a baseball game or whatever those, like, what do I do about that?
What do you do with it?
Yeah. What do I do with it?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Listen, we all make goals. I say a lot of us make goals on stuff. And especially when you're like crushing your goals, like business goals, you had just said, like, we're crushing, we write goals down and hopefully we're crushing them or getting pretty close. But I think what you do with that 14 days is you start to think and you're like, all right, great, I'm crushing these goals. But guess what? I'm working 6 days a week, 14 hours a day, and I'm not spending time with my wife the way I should. And actually, I see my buddies once a year. We do this thing. Like, I got to be more proactive. Like, why am I waiting once a year? Like, why isn't it once a quarter? How do I incorporate some of that into my life on a daily basis or weekly or monthly or however it is? And I think that's what you do with it. Because at the end of the day, I think when you reach a certain level of success, again, even if you haven't hit like certain income things, but you reach this area where you're like, I'm good. Like I would say to people, I'm like, I got enough cake to eat. Do I want more cake? Yeah, I want more cake. But like at the end of the day, like I have enough cake to eat. Like that doesn't drive me anymore to the next goal, to the next thing. So now I got to like think, what is going to fill my tank to make me happy? Because, I wrote out goals when I was 12 years ago and then wrote them out 5 years ago. And I've literally crushed all of them. And I'm so thankful, but like, it doesn't fill my tank anymore to crush those goals. So now I got to do something else to fill my tank.
Okay. I don't know if Nicole's truly a guest for Win Make Give because she sounds like she just limited cake, right? There's never enough cake, Nicole. We can always find room for more cake.
Vanilla ice cream, by the way, Chad. Vanilla ice cream goes with all kinds of cake.
It goes better with apple pie, though. All right. So let's talk about this because, Nicole, I'm going to make up things that Bob's thinking, right? I don't know what Bob's thinking specifically, but he's writing his eulogy and he might realize in there that hopefully some of the words in there are, outstanding husband and powerful father to his kids. Hopefully those are things that are in there, not just, Bob gave back, right? So now he's got these terms about himself. He's got these things about himself. Basically, he's creating values for who he's. How do we align all of that, make all of that now become true? Because Bob's eulogy is not going to be perfect tomorrow.
No,
This is an exercise that's going to take him time and years to work on, but how does he pull all of that together and then be able to stay focused on working towards that with, I would think, values are probably some of the
so like, the great loving husband, like I always pick out things like that. Like, okay, what are you doing on a consistent basis to be remembered that way? Your kids, you want to leave this certain legacy with your kids, and it may not be a money legacy. It may be like wisdom and stuff. For me, it's like, okay, my son, when I wrote my eulogy, I think he was just born. And one of the things I wanted to do, and I incorporated and backed into it, was like, I want to have these date nights where it was just like him and I have this one-on-one time that he can remember. And then I like started to incorporate other things as he got older, because it put the values of things that were most important to me, that I wanted him to say about me if I left this earth, like I could do that. So I just started backing in. So, it was really important for me to have like one adventure trip with him a year and one like totally beach vacation. Okay, well, what are we going to do on those? And what are the memories I want him to make? All right, great. And then our little date nights, are they at home? Are they out? Like I started to get specific on those things. My employees are important to me. How do I want them? I want to make all of their lives better. So what am I doing to do that? And that was not something that came overnight. It's like, you're doing all these millions of things. So it's like one step at a time. And, I made goals that were totally achievable and doing that. Like, okay, my employees, it started out a long time ago. It was like once a quarter, I want to do team lunch and just make sure that they know they're important, because sometimes the grind goes and like, yeah, I say great job or do this and I get them like holiday gifts, but am I really like just listening to them, like how their weekend was and like really feeling? So it started just once a quarter, because that I knew I could do. I didn't want to say I'm going to do
every week we're going to do this, and 3 weeks later you're like, yeah, we're not actually going to be doing this week.
Exactly. Yeah. So I really try and just like it's make it simple. Like that's it. I have to say, you just break it down to make it simple. Like, again, I want my wife to know, as well, okay, great. You know what? I'm going to make sure once a month or once a quarter that I'm going to write her a little note, leave it. Like, I know that means the world to her. It doesn't have to be grandiose. It doesn't have to be big. It's little things. And it's amazing as you start doing those things, because I think most people want to be remembered in a favorable way, and to leave like a lasting legacy on anyone they touch. You start to feel awesome and you just want to do more of it, because you realize the impact it makes on other people's lives. So, again, it's the little things. It doesn't have to be huge. Small, totally attainable, and it grows on you.
And I think the other thing is just being purposeful, that like you're going to do these things. Like I used to do this thing where when I don't know if I've ever talked about this before, but I used to, when I was out having lunch or dinner or even at the mall, like I would just spot somebody and be like, I'm going to pay for their dinner, or I'm going to buy that pair of shoes for that. I can see him having the conversation with his mom. It doesn't look like they can afford. I'm just going to offer to buy the shoes. I had one lady one time look at me like, get the fuck away from us. Oh, should I say that? I don't know. I'm not allowed to say that, Chad. Anyway,
hey,
get away, like, what are you doing, you weirdo? And I was like, hey, sorry. Look, I don't know your guys' situation at all. I was raised by a single mom. I can remember having these conversations when I was 12 with my mom and her saying, look, we can't afford, I don't know your guys' situation. I have the means today and I want to buy these shoes for you. Is that okay? And she was like, what's the catch? But I used to do these things all the time. But they weren't purposeful. I just got in this little span where for about 3 months I was doing that, and then I stopped doing it, right? But it's the purposeful. It's being purposeful about it, saying I'm going to make this a part of like who I am and what I do, right?
Yeah, and I think when you start to do that, like you are living the way you want to be remembered. I mean, again, and you start incorporating, and it's not like at some point it doesn't even be, it's just what you do. Like it doesn't even become like, oh, I'm doing conscious thing that I'm doing. It just becomes part of your life. I'm really big on just, I love making people feel good about themselves. Like that fills my tank up these days. Like I've hit a lot. I've been thankful. Like had a rough road. I'm thankful. So I like making other people feel good. And that was part of my eulogy. Like, I really wanted to be remembered as like kind, always giving back, whatever. And now it's part of who I am. Like, people say it all the time, like, I'm going to do the random act of kindness all the time, but I don't even have to consciously think about it. Like, those opportunities just come and like, yep, I'm doing the random act of kindness. And it fills my tank up. Like, and that makes me feel like I'm living my best life. And, it's interesting because my son, we have a very modest home. It's him and I, that's it. And we live in a very affluent area, and we have this tiny little ranch. And he said to me one day, he's like, when are we going to finally get like a big house? And I said, oh, okay, well, interesting. I go, I think our house is really nice. And he goes, yeah, but like, it's so small. And I'm like, okay. Well, I'm like, but we get to do all these amazing things, and some of your friends don't have any of those. Like, you start thinking about trade-offs and like the messaging that you send to the people around you too. Like, it's just amazing. And I told him, I said, listen, I've always wanted to live my life. Like, I don't need to show everybody what we have or how we have it. And I didn't always have a lot, Gavin. I'm like, I didn't even know I could afford diapers on you at one point. Your dad and I got divorced. Like, it was a struggle. And he's like, oh, okay. So I go, we can give up going on vacation, doing this. And he's like, no, actually, I like our house. It's really nice. So it's just interesting. It's like, yeah, I guess we don't need a big house. Like, what would we use it all for? Anyways.
Your son is out in the world that's beating into him. We need more stuff. You need a bigger house. You need a bigger car. Check out this new iPhone. Get the Jordan.
Yeah.
Like, this stuff's being beat into his head. So he wouldn't have any, he'd come home and go, hey, Mom, like, how come we don't have a big house like the neighbors or like they show on TV? Or so like, yeah, we do. Even at that age, you gotta be positioning these. Look, I spend a lot of time thinking about my kids and trying to instill in them that, life is not all about how big your thing is or how many of that thing you have, and granted, Chad, I have a problem with my shoes and my hat.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on your hat and your shoe collection that you need a whole storage facility just for, Bob. So we won't talk about that. There you go. Just you're switching up hats. All right. Yeah. So let me ask you this, Nicole. Let's folks, I told you not to turn this one off early because I saved the question for the end that I want to ask you. Now, Bob will probably spur this off into like 6, but I want to ask you this because when I was doing research on you, one of the things I read was it says that you like to talk about control the controllable and let go of the uncontrollable. And that's one of those things, Nicole, that sounds great and nobody can do it. Right? We all stress about all those things, and I don't have the statistics in front of me, but it's something like 95% of the things we worry about never happen or actually happen in our favor. So they were never worth worrying about. But help our audience, because that sounds great to say, don't worry about the uncontrollable things. And it's not easy to do. Help our audience do it.
Yeah. So this one, I wish I could have told my younger self and actually listened to the advice. But, like things happen. And then at some point, you got to throw your hands up in the air. And that's what finally got me. Okay. There's only so much you can control. And you are taking years off your life when you worry. And I think the best advice I got, and this actually changed my mindset, and I saw a speaker, this guy, Sean Aker, he's pretty amazing. He talks about the happiness advantage. Yep. And I started practicing gratitude. And I know we hear this a lot, like, oh, I have a 5-minute journal. I have this. I don't have time. I don't have time for it. I didn't have time for it. But you know what? I do have 2 minutes before I go to bed just to think about everything that I'm thankful for. And it just started changing my mindset. And literally it helps rewire your brain. It's scientific. Like, it starts to rewire your brain. And I think the more positive you can be and the more grateful you are when you start to rewire your brain in a more positive way, science shows that you worry less, which is pretty amazing. And I start to think about, like, listen, I got all this good stuff in front of me right here. Like, at the end of the day, I'm not worrying about something that may happen. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not going to feed you bullshit and I'm saying, oh, I never worry. Of course I worry. But at the end of the day, does it keep me up at night? Not anymore. I literally turn my brain off and I'm able to say, what do I got to be thankful for today? What worked well? What worked well and what do I have to be thankful for? And what can I do for someone else to make their life better?
All right. And gratitude, folks, is one of the parts of the 15-point plan. So if you haven't checked out the 15-Point Plan podcast, I'm going to challenge you to jump over there with Jolene and I and Ben, where we talk about how to keep yourself happier, more energy, and healthier. One of the 15 points is gratitude. I'll also say the last thing we say every night, my wife and I, last question I ask her every night as we're going to bed was, what was the best part of your day? So it's that mindset, right? Just take that simple phrase and boy, what are you thinking about now as you're going to bed? It was the positives from the day. So great little tip right there, Nicole, that everybody can do, even heck, while you're brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
Right. Just take those 2 minutes that you should be brushing your teeth and just challenge yourself to think about the positive, grateful things that have happened that day in your world.
Yep. I like it.
All right. Bob, you got something you want to ask Nicole before I let her out of here? I know you always have something thinking in that brain of yours.
Okay, how do you get people to do this? Like, look, I have the best mentors, Ben and Chad, and these people and we got systems and models around our world, and the 15-point plan. And how do I do it? Like when you're working with somebody who's like, I want to change. Like, is the first step is what?
Here,
I need to change, or
Like, it's like, the first step is just defining, like, I look at it always from a 30,000 foot view, defining the life you want to live, like what's important to you. And then listen, it's like anything in life. You're going on a diet, you jump all in and you're like, I'm getting this, I'm going to do this, or a workout plan or whatever it is. Like, I got this. And you're all gung ho first week and then it fizzles out, like that's what people want to do here. Or they're like, it's a lot of work. But I say it doesn't have to be a lot of work. It could be super simple. First of all, if you leave and do one thing, and that one thing is defining 30,000 foot view of what 30,000 foot view of what you want your life to look like, listen, you're at least have a direction to go. If you don't do all the work in between, at least you have something in sight and vision. That's number one. And then at the end of the day, you can put as little or as much as you want into doing something. But it's like anything, any other coaching or any other major transformation you want to make in your life. I always tell people don't, and I'm like the worst, I get super excited. I have business coach. I've had everything, and I like 100 miles an hour, like Nicole's going after it. And certainly I do feel like the burnout too sometimes. So I have just paced myself. And again, it's the big vision first. And then I just take, bite off what I can chew. And that's it. Don't be like another diet failure. Like, that's what I tell people. It's like little small steps. And it could be literally just doing one of those exercises, your eulogy, the 14 days, and picking one thing out that you're changing your world today. And it makes all the difference.
Yeah. So I shouldn't be like, I'm going to eliminate sugar. I should be like, I should probably stop drinking Coke.
Exactly. Exactly.
A couple small steps, Chad. Don't say anything.
They say life's a marathon, not a sprint. Yeah, not really though. Life should be a whole bunch of even paced miles, right? That get you where you're going, right? Don't worry about the marathon, and definitely don't worry about the sprint, but just keep moving in the right direction. All right, Nicole, here at Win Make Give, we are living up to the give. In season 2, we've decided to add donations to charity on every episode. And as our guest today, we want to allow you to choose the charity that we'll be supporting today. Who will we be making a donation to on your behalf?
I would love for you guys to support the Anthony Rizzo Foundation. He's a Chicago Cubs player, but he is a survivor of childhood cancer. And I've seen his money actually go to work and help kids. So I like to see that.
Love it.
Well, we like sports, so that works for us.
All right.
Bob and I are high behind that. All right, folks, you want to learn more about Nicole, you can go to finding her book, Navigating Life's Transitions, on Amazon, right? Or they could go to findyourbestlifenow.com. Did I get it that time?
You got it.
All right, Find Your Best Life. Now, where else can they connect with you, Nicole, if they want, other than just going to the website?
Yeah, you can certainly connect with me on Instagram at liveyourbestlife_Nicole, or on Facebook, Live Your Best Life Nicole as well.
All right. So, gang, now you know where to find her, so you can find out more about living your best life. Bob and I want to thank you for taking the time and joining us here today, and remind you, as always, do good.